Chapter 23, Rules Governing the Issuance and Trading of Securities. In this chapter, the learning objectives were the Introduction to Regulation of Securities, Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, the Securities Act of 1933, the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, state security laws, e-commerce, online security disclosure and fraud regulation, and then global dimensions of rules governing the issuance of trading of securities. Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the SEC, is a federal administrative agency charged with the overall responsibility of regulating securities and ensuring that investors will receive full and fair disclosure of all materials, fact, with regard to any public offering of securities. It has a wide enforcement power to protect investors against price manipulation, insider trading, and other dishonest dealings. And then Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010. So this was to stop any occurrences of problems faced by the United States between 2008 and 2010. So they hired a new Financial Stability Oversight Council made up of heads of a majority regulatory agency was established. The Government Accountability Office was there to oversee Fed for a short period of time during 2008, and then hedge funds larger than 100 million must register with the SEC and provide required data, and then the Office of Thrift Supervision will be absorbed into the Office and the Comptroller of Currency. And then we talked about Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which monitors the financial markets on behalf of the savers and borrowers, and exemptions auto car dealers, payday lenders, and check cashing firms. Regulations of the regulators by a court of law is 15 separate agencies have to be involved in rulemaking and enforcement. And then the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, corporate accountability, requires a CEO and a CFO to certify financial reports, and then the profits and bonuses must be forfeited if earnings are restated due to the security frauds. And then the new accounting regulation establishes the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board and then prohibits auditors from offering 9 specific types of consulting services for their corporates like clients. And the criminal penalty, 25 years imprisonment for fraud, 20 years imprisonment for destruction, alteration, and fabrications of records, and the CEOs or a CFO who knowingly certified a report that does not comply with the requirements, up to 5 years in prison and $1 million fine. And then we talked about Chapter 24, Antitrust Laws. The learning objectives were the introduction to antitrust, enforcements of and exemptions from the antitrust, the Sherman Act of 1890, and then other antitrust suits in the Clayton Act of 1914. So the introduction to antitrust law is trust provide business arranges in which owners of stock in several companies place their securities with the trustees. So the trustees jointly manage the company and pay out a specific share of their earnings to the security holders. And the Sherman Act of 1890 aimed at regulating monopolies, known as the antitrust salute. And then the goals for antitrust salute would be preservation of small businesses in an economy characterized by many sellers competing with one, prevention of concentrated of political and economic power in the hands of a few sellers in each industry, exemptions, regulated industries, labor unions, agricultural activities, baseball activities falling with the state action doctrine, cities, towns, and villages activities, oil making, marketing. And then the Sherman Act of 1890. It's a combination, contract, or conspiracy, and the act requires the percent of the agreement or a collusion. The restraint of trade, action that interferes with the economic law and supply-demand, rule of reason standard, and per se standard.